Okay, hello and welcome to this evening stream. Hopefully mics and stuff are set up. Brill. Yeah, last week was a little bit of a rough start, but yeah. So we're going to be live this evening with a bit more game development. So obviously our game jam is currently live at the moment. Our latest jam, Perfect Simplicity with the theme, which has had kind of a mixed reception. We knew it was going to be one that was a little bit tricky for some people to get into, but we're kind of hoping that with a little bit of time, people can really start to get to grips with the sort of theme we're asking for. It's the first time we've gone with a theme that's a little bit more kind of mechanic based and a bit less of a creative prompt. So yeah, let us know in chat what you think about what you think about the theme so far. If you're kind of partaking in the jam, let us know how you're getting on. As always, I'm happy to sort of talk about game design choices. If you've got any questions about the sort of things you want to include in your game, you're not sure whether it's sort of on theme, then yeah, more than happy to have that discussion in chat tonight. I think it'll be quite an interesting result of games we're going to get, and hopefully, a bunch of games that are going to be really accessible and really straightforward for a lot of people to play, kind of without anything getting too complicated and too intricate. It's a lot of kind of thought. It's not necessarily simple, doesn't necessarily have to mean easy. The game itself could still be a difficult game, but I think if the approach to playing the game is simple, then that's just fine. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to make my own game. I'm probably not going to finish it, but we'll see. It's probably a little bit ambitious for a single stream. But essentially what I'm going to be making, or what I'm going to hope to make, is a sort of endless runner type game, where the entire process is controlled just by a single button. There'll be a bit of a potential for like a shop mechanic, which will work on like a cursor or something. But in terms of the actual gameplay, what I'm thinking I'm going to try and do is have it so you actually control an NPC, and you, with a single button, or maybe with two buttons actually, it'll be kind of primary and secondary. So it'll be one button while you're holding it will get them to run, and the other button will get them to jump. So you're kind of flicking between the two controls, but essentially what you're doing is just controlling it very straightforward. So it's just two things to think about. It takes a lot of the complexity out of having to aim a character and run around, and you're sort of getting them to get through a course of traps and things like that. So there's a lot to take into consideration. I'm also going to focus potentially a lot on things like the retention side of stuff. So if I don't get to it tonight, I'll at least talk about the plans I've got for that. Retention being, things around getting people to come back to the game. Why might they want to come back? Obviously, other stuff like leaderboards is great, but we can program in some fun things like daily login rewards. We could do kind of some sort of mechanic that almost leans on the tycoon style of things. So you sort of limit how much people can do, so they can kind of come back to the game later. So there's little things like that we can start to introduce, and that's generally what I'm going to be doing this evening. So I've started in a new game. I'm in a kind of completely empty game with my sort of new favorite skin. Let us know how you get on with the Cursed Galleons season as well. It'd be great to sort of see how people are getting on. I'm pretty sure Bones is my new favorite outfit. I'm probably going to wear Bones for a long time. At least until the next season when we get an even more awesome, interesting character. Cool. So what I'm going to do first is I think I want to try and get my control scheme working to kind of power an NPC. And if you did miss yesterday's stream, Andy's done a really good little crash course on several things around kind of simple input mechanics and stuff. And I didn't quite catch the end, but they ended up with something with a big cannon stuck to the player's face. And, usual Andy stream, it sort of descends into chaos at some point. But yeah, it looked like a pretty fun stream. So do make sure you go check out Andy's stream from yesterday. If you're stuck for any inspiration about what to make for the jam, there'll be some potential little mechanics come out of that you can think, actually, yeah, that'd be great for X, Y, or Z. Hopefully you can get on board with the jam through that. So what I'm going to do, as I say, I'm going to get myself an NPC, and I'm going to just basically try and hook up what I want the camera to look like, and then how I'm going to get the NPC moving. And then from there, I'll start to build up the loop. So because of this jam basically being about simple mechanics and simple inputs and kind of a simple way for people to play the game, I think that's kind of a really important thing to nail first. I could spend a lot of time building out a world. I could spend a lot of time building out the general mechanics of the game. But if the actual input, if the way that the game is played ends up being saved till last and it's not really thought through, it can kind of potentially hinder the general theme and the experience. So I really want to focus on kind of the movement and motion of the character to start with. There's going to be a few ways in my head I think I can do this, and it should hopefully work out. Okay, so let's start with a cam. Let's start with trying to get the controls from the player to read through to an NPC. So we're going to need a new script on the player where we're going to catch this input. We'll call this the NPC driver. Okay, and we'll add a new script called the same thing. But call it player NPC driver. So what I'm imagining here. Hey chat, by the way. Yeah, I should probably say some hello. So we've got Unai, Spogster, and Alex. Hey, as I say, if you want to take a part of the jam, then do feel free to shout out what you're working on. It'd be great to sort of discuss game ideas. I'm really interested to see what sort of stuff people are coming up with this. As I say, I think it's a really interesting theme. Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool idea. I'm a bit more in place, right? So what do I want to do first? So probably first I want to make sure I can capture all of the inputs properly. So on button pressed. Okay, so that's the first step. That's the entry point in which we're going to be capturing player input. So it's really important if you're going to be doing anything driven like that. This is kind of the method you're going to want to use. So what I could do at this point is I could just pass all input to the NPC. What I think I might do is I might control up here. I might determine what buttons will do what. And if those said buttons are pressed, I'll call a specific function on the NPC. So the NPC will know how to move. It won't necessarily have to, determine what to do based on input. All that will happen on the player, and the player will tell the NPC what to do. Obviously, with any programming kind of game scripting scenario, there's always 100 different ways you can achieve anything, and this is just one of the many ways which you could do it. So let's have a look here. So I guess I'm going to want an NPC entity to sort of control. That's probably going to need a little bit of work because I can't imagine I'm going to always have that at runtime. I might want to spawn an NPC in, for example. But this will do for now. So that can get my NPC out of the world and tell it what to do. Okay, what else might I want to do? I want to know my move button. That'll be a string. And I want to know my jump for now, because I'm thinking I'm only going to have the NPC be able to move or jump, or move and jump sort of thing. There's the two inputs. Okay, so the move button in my head will be secondary. The jump will be primary. Okay, we can swap those around at any time, obviously. So if button equal to secondary, then we want to tell our NPC to jump. Now I could just, because I've got a reference to the NPC entity here, I could just tell the NPC entity here to jump, but I'm going to send it to a script because I'll probably have a script on the NPC that might determine certain things like a cooldown between jumps, things like that. I think that might be useful. So up the properties, NPC send to scripts, jump. Okay, if primary, then we'll send something like, let's say on jump pressed, and we'll do on move pressed. With this one, we'll pass a flag and we'll say true. Because what I'll do is I'll do another function here, which is basically the flip side of that other entry point, which is going to be player NPC driver script on button release, because I want to know when I've released the move button. realized I've hard coded those there. So actually I want these to correspond to these up here, don't I? So that way when I change the property, it changes what I'm binding to there. So move button. So it's the same thing here. If I release the move button, I'm going to call the same function, but I'm going to pass false. And then on the NPC, I can basically determine what to do based on that. So that should get me that far at least. Let's see about doing this. We're participating in a jam. We'll probably show it off this Friday to hear some feedback. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'd highly recommend trying to get some feedback sooner rather than later. I mean, I say this in most jams, but I think it's more important than ever, really, especially on something like this where it's very focused on sort of simplicity. Really make sure you do find some time to get the game in front of other players, get people to play it. With Creator, it's really easy. If you don't want to publish the game, you can find someone on Discord and share a link to your creator editor experience at least, and they can jump in and play with you. And it's just it'll be really crucial to get some good feedback. And I think you'll probably find a lot of things actually that you take for granted are going to be really easy. Might not be quite so easy when other people give it a go. So yeah, I'd highly recommend giving it a go. Getting it in front of people. We're going to try and do a feedback Friday. We're a little bit short staffed this week. So if it's not staff run, we'll perhaps try and find someone in the community who can run Feedback Friday for us. But either way, there's plenty of chance to grab people ahead of the weekend to get yourself some feedback to implement over the weekend in time for the deadline on Monday. So let's get our NPC up and running. I'm going to create a script folder underneath, just make it easy. We'll call this the driver, and we'll add a new script of NPC. Script. So this is like the kind of catcher. So this is going to take the input that we get from the player side of the script and then put it in here. So we had a NPC driver script on press. Okay, and for now we'll just program in that jump. On move, I guess on move press doesn't make sense when it's release, but never mind, that'll do. On move pressed. Okay, so this is where it's going to be tricky because the way you move an NPC, you don't just say move forward or stop. You essentially tell them to go somewhere. But what I'm thinking, I don't know if this is going to work. We'll try it. I'm going to tell the NPC to move to a point that is attached to them, so they're never actually going to reach the point. Okay, so if I put this point here, and this will be the move point. So think of it this way: as the NPC moves, that is going to move as well. So you see how the green's moving. So basically, I'm going to tell them go to this locator. Oh, actually, I'm not telling them to go to an entity. I tell them to go to a position. So actually, as they move that position, I'm going to have to keep telling them to move to that position. I think that's the way I'm going to have to get around that. Let me just see how that looks. So it's move to position. Okay, so it's always a vector that you pass, not an entity to move to. Okay, that's fine. So what we'll probably do is we'll just need to set up a new schedule. Alex, I think my idea is even too simple. I'm not sure that's possible. I think going too simple, as long as the game is still interesting, I think that works. As long as it's not sort of so simple that the game is essentially boring. I think if it's still an interesting mechanic, then simple is fine. The more simple, the better, perhaps. Okay, so move schedule. So basically, we're just going to schedule to move to that point every second or something like that. The target position will be, I guess, a property up here. error to fix. Okay, so move to that position. Okay, but we're going to need to do this in a while loop. So through, do the following. Let's say wait a second, and let's do it again. That's if we're moving. So if that is false, then we want to cancel that. So if there's a schedule, we're going to cancel it because obviously we want to stop that 1 second loop from running. And then we're going to tell the MC to stop moving, which is just a cancel movement. Okay, so stop all your movement, cancel the schedule, stop. That's when I release. So let's see if that has worked. So if I left click, there we are, he's going to jump. And if I hold secondary, move in. Nice, okay, cool. So he's chasing that point. If I stop, stops. Oh, nice, okay. Make him run off the edge of the world. Cool. All right, okay, well, that's fairly straightforward then. So I've got something that will drive the NPC through a couple of clicks. So as I say, for anyone who missed it at the start, the idea of the game is I want to try and build some sort of like endless runner obstacle course where it's like how far can you go. The ultimate goal would be your NPC is fairly slow at first. It can make it through some objectives, but you're not going to get very far. Each time you get a certain distance, you'll get some currency. You can then use that currency to upgrade your NPC. You can make them a little bit better, make them a little bit faster, make them jump a bit higher, something like that. The idea behind the game, I guess the narrative would be this NPC is actually an alien. So let's throw our alien on here. We'll do this one. That's pretty cool. That's the start. Okay. So there's an alien that's trying to escape a facility, is the sort of general idea I want the camera to sort of be like up here somewhere. This is going to be how you sort of control it. So I'm going to need this camera to follow that NPC. So I could probably try just attaching a camera to them. Oh, that was the wrong one. And we want the sort of, let's say, to aim like the up there on the NPC. Move to drone. So this will be the NPC cam. Okay. I might do a little bit of CCTV sort of idea. So the camera is basically you watching the alien escape. Let's get add a new script folder on here. Just be the cam script. Cam logic. Okay, so we'll add a new property on here. So this will be the NPC cam. Which takes that camera there. Okay, and then from here, what I'm going to try and do is on init. So when I get my player, let's try update the camera for the user. So self, get entity, get user. So the user attached to this player. Set camera. Now I need to set that camera to my NPC's camera. Find script property, I called it NPC cam. Okay, so we just want to set that there. cool. I'm wondering if I don't even need a player to spawn. I could probably at some point. I'm wondering if actually. No, I think having the players be nice in some way. Probably go back to the player standing outside the shop or something at the end of a round. But let's see. Okay, cool. So left click or hold left, hold right click to run, let go to stop, jump. So, and that camera's actually working really nicely. That's tracking. It's nicely. I thought that might have some sort of stutter, but that's working just great. Cool. That's got me that as the game. So the other side of this being like an accessible game is I kind of want the game to just start. So when you start the game, you sort of go straight into this sort of view. You're not necessarily having to like run to a terminal, start the game, pick a level, anything like that. I kind of want the game to just start. So it's that simplicity of, I click to play this game in Creator, and then there I am. I'm sort of playing the game, and then I can explain like kind of the rules, a little bit of like tutorial help, perhaps some prompts. Maybe the first time you play, there's some prompts each day. Maybe something like that. That's pretty cool. Okay, what do I want to do next? Probably have a little go at getting some traps. And I guess this NPC is going to need a health script attaching to it. Let's give it some health. Now I might add a health property, but for now I think I'll just have a simple function for killing the NPC. And then we can sort of think about how we're going to do the cleanup logic, like despawning and then respawning a new one in a moment. So we get some traps. We've got loads of traps that people have built over time. We don't have to go back too far to the Dungeon Master build jam where we had some. So I might give these ones a go. Have a little play. If anyone knows any good trap packages in chat, do let me know. I guess the theming of like escaping a facility probably needs like traps that are a little bit more, I don't know, on theme. What have we got? We've got things like an arrow wall. I guess these are all very dungeon related, aren't they? Running through a dungeon. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could work on the theme. Getting something to work in the first instance is more important. How? I guess this is going to work with a. Okay, tell you what, I might leave that. I'm wondering if I'm going to overcomplicate it too soon if I go with this. So let's remove that. Death collision package. Yeah, let's just remove all of that. Let's keep it simple. I think there's a just death collision to start with. I think I might just go with this, which is basically just a couple of simple moving death obstacles. That's probably going to be the way to test this, and then I can sort of work on theming it at a later date. So what does this actually call? It calls if the player is alive. So that should work because I guess we'll call this character think that should call. I mean, we'll find out, but that should be called still with an NPC. I'm recording. Let's change that to kill. Okay, so there's an obstacle. Let's see what happens. Makitos traps. Yeah, I was thinking Makitos traps. I'm wondering how they're gonna work. Oh, okay. There's an interesting an interesting side effect of attaching the camera to the NPC. Okay. What we're going to need to do is detach that when they're killed. So that should be easy enough to do. So we can set up a on killed event. On killed type event. Quite an interesting dynamic camera, but yeah, probably a bit of a headache as well. Okay, so the NPC is going to have a event in the health script on killed. And what I can do is on my cam logic, see, it was worth setting up a script because now I need one. Is basically detach the camera from the NPC. So get my NPC cam entity called detach. Okay, and what that will do is basically remove it from this. So it's currently parented to this NPC. So as I obviously move my NPC through the world, this camera, this one here, is attached to the child. By calling detach on this, it's going to remove it basically in here. So almost do the same as on parent. Okay, so now when I move my NPC, you see the camera's not moving, and that's because it's not part of the same thing anymore. Just undo all that actually because I've moved him out of position. Okay, that's got the camera back in the right place. When I am killed, let's call detach. So we detach the camera and let the ragdoll happen naturally. So let's see if that works. I might need a little bit of a delay between those two things. So I've got control of my player over here. Okay, cool. There we go. So we can see the camera hasn't kind of stayed with the character. Or with the NPC, it's split. So that works quite nicely. What I probably need to do next. So I've got something that will kill the NPC. I need to think about how I'm going to respawn the NPC, I guess. And I need that game loop to continue. So let's add a new thing here. I'm wondering actually if this logic I've got on this NPC driver probably would be better on the user, come to think of it. Yeah, let's put it on the user. I think that's going to be a bit easier going forwards. NPC logic. Let's rename that script. You may have guessed I haven't put a huge amount of thought into this coming into this stream. I always like to sort of try and do these things on the fly. I think it kind of more genuine experience then. It's just trying to code as we go. Okay, the player is essentially useless at this point. And what I could probably do is in here, just for now. If I set up a new on user on user login on the user probably doesn't make sense. If you set up a new an on user login event somewhere in the world, let's just add it to the terrain for now. Right, now let's do this properly. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Script folder, we'll call this game logic, and in here we'll add a game logic script. Okay, so we'll just specify an empty on user login. And what that means is the game's going to assume that you're going to control. That was broken there. The game's going to assume that you're going to control when to spawn a player. So by having it on user login, a sort of method or function in a script somewhere, you then have to say, I'm going to spawn a player now via the API. If you don't include one, then it will spawn one automatically. I just realized in my script in here, I'm referencing this bit here, but I am the user now. I can get rid of that bit, and that should fix that little problem. There we go. Of course, you can go straight to this. I haven't got my character. I'm going to go straight to my NPC, my alien that I'm trying to get to escape. Okay, nice. So, what can we do next? Well, let's template our NPC up, because I kind of want this to be something I can spawn in when I need one. So I think that's a decent enough point. So we'll call this alien NPC and we'll template that up. Okay, so we can now delete that from the world. Add in a locator for where we want to spawn NPC. I think that's close enough to halfway. And we'll call this alien start point. Okay. Because I mean, eventually what I'll get is this sort of logic with the start point, and the traps will be like a lane, and then I guess when players join a game, they get their own lane. Hey, Dracos. Cool. So that's that. That's that. So let's have a go at adding this now. So my NPC entity is actually going to be a template now. Template. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, in fact, I'm going to rename the script, wasn't I? I did. Okay, well, let's just change this function. Anywhere we see player NPC, let's replace that with user NPC. There we go. Keep that neat and tidy. Okay, so what is that? Removed all of my properties. Cool. Let's spawn the NPC. Let's see if that works. Okay, so I'm basically going to spawn the NPC, and then I'm going to grab the camera from it and set my camera to the one that points at that NPC. I just need to add the start point in. Okay, let's see if that works. Okay, nice. My inputs on sending. Okay. And that's because my NPC needs to not be local. Just self. Okay, cool. It's gonna be fun. I feel like we can get some pretty fun ragdoll moments in this. Turn that crosshair off before I forget. Okay, so yeah, that works quite nicely. So we go straight in. We've got our NPC to control. And he's not going to make it over that because that's too high, but that's fine. He's spawning where it needs to. Input controls. Okay, so it's literally 2-button input. Get them to move and jump. Now what do I want to do next? I guess getting some concept on the screen of how far, or get some way to track how far they've gone. But no, get them to respawn next. Okay. So when the NPC is killed, the user associated with that NPC needs to know about it. Okay, so this is my NPC on health when they're killed. Okay, so when they're spawned, they probably need to know who's driving them. So that can come into this script, I think. That can be a visible, is that there? Oh, editable, that's what. Editable false, that's basically going to make it so it's not an editable property, but it's a property that can be stored against the entity. So owned by my user. Okay, so when I spawn, first thing I want to do before I get the camera is send to scripts a set user event, or set owner, sorry, and pass this entity. So basically I'm going to say, tell this NPC that I am the owner. Then where am I going to do my logic for? Could be another script just on here. A new script. This will be the user NPC logic script. Gets a bit confusing, but I kind of want to separate the one that's all about button presses and spawning from the one that's going to have a lot of like the saving mechanics and things like that. So let's have a respawn. Could some of this go into that script? No, I think let's just set up a new function here. That's the one that spawns the NPC. Okay, so that one will spawn one when we're ready. For now, we'll just do that one in this function anyway. Okay, on NPC code, we'll just do that again. Is only movement considered as game that could be played with one finger only? Because it should be in mobile and pad, but not on keyboard. Just wondering. Is only movement considered as game that could be played with one finger only? Because it should be in mobile and pad, but not on keyboard. I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. I think the single digit input award um, is sort of more of a reflection, at least the way I understand it, is a reflection on kind of one at a time, at least. It might be that, for a lot of complex games, for example, like a proper classic first person shooter or third person shooter, you're having to run two sticks at the same time. You're having to jump between like kind of stick and a jump button, as well as aiming down sights and shooting. So you've got several forms of input on a controller at any moment. Same on a keyboard, kind of WAS and D and clicking and moving. There's a lot to go on. With a sort of a single button input, it might be that there's a couple of buttons to use, but it's only ever sort of one at a time. So I think the single button that's the way I interpret it. It's very difficult to make a game that is purely a single button and keeping it interesting, but it's possible. It'd be really interesting to see if anyone does do that. In this case, at least for this game, it's going to be kind of two inputs, but it's going to be two inputs that are very similar, very close together. So it's going to be triggers on a controller, or it's going to be left and right click on a mouse. Or for example, on sort of if you're playing on Stadia, if you're playing on the mobile version of Stadia, then you've kind of got the triggers at the top. So you kind of, again, it's just two inputs. One input for each thumb. It's very straightforward, very simple play. I'm going to do this in a quick little schedule just to get it so there's a little bit of a delay. Just for now. Let's say wait 2 seconds, spawn the NPC, then go back. So we need to call this on NPC killed. So what I'll do, I can't do it via this function because this function, also this event, won't know exactly who the owner is. But what I can do is get the owner. So find the script property on this entity, i.e. this NPC of owned by, and then we're going to call, so on this owner, we're going to send on NPC killed. Okay, so I'm going to tell the owner that this NPC has been killed, therefore spawn a new one. Now, what I'll probably need to do is then destroy the old NPC. Let's leave it for now, but I would need to destroy that old NPC, wouldn't I? See what happens. Okay, error, center script, line 19. Scripts. Okay, cool. That one's in the way. Oh, he's getting a bit collidey with the old ones. I think there's kind of a charm in leaving the old ones there. I think there's something that's quite funny about it. Could it work by keeping the old ones there? You end up with a pile of them. It's quite funny. Not very performant, but it's quite funny. But I think we'll leave that. I think we'll get them to destroy themselves because that would make more sense. So on code, right. So let's do a schedule in here. Set alive to false. Wait 2 seconds. Destroy. Now, what we can also do with this is we can catch when we're going to be destroyed and make sure we also destroy our camera, because the camera has been detached as part of this event, so it isn't going to be destroyed alongside it. We don't want to leave a load of camera entities floating around. So on my NPC cam script, let's have a... I've still got a reference to it. Even though I've detached it, I still have a reference to it here. So on destroy will get called on this entity or this script when the NPC itself is destroyed. So we'll make sure what we do is just a little cleanup. NPC and we'll call destroy on that to make sure we destroy that reference there. Can just leave the last one there without too much issue as a place marker where you failed. Guess I could sort of kind of keep like a rolling little array. Might come back and do that. I think I'll leave it like this for now. But yeah, there's just something interesting about seeing the previous one. I could leave a body bag. I could swap a body bag out and put a little body bag where you failed. Okay, that's working quite nicely. Now, if I just do a quick little thing, not there, on the NPC cam here, let's set that to 2. So it should like rewind the track slightly. That'd be quite cool as an effect. Oh, doesn't seem to want to do that. Interesting. Why is that not taking that transition time into account? Interesting. Okay, we'll leave that. I think if I can get that to it, that'd be a nice effect. I see how a game where, for example, you have to jump at the right moment would be one finger in every platform. This is why I was asking if only movement is still okay because of keyboard. Thanks, Russ. Yeah, I think if another part of the complexity with movement, if you're just using the left stick for movement, or WAS and D for movement, that's fine. The main complexity that comes around movement in games is the camera control that comes with it, which is a reason why in this, I'm thinking it'd be cool to have it so it's actually a fixed camera, so that you're just inputting very simple what's going to happen. You're not having to control where to look or how to look. And that takes a lot of the complexity out of the kind of the motion of the game. So thinking about the camera is really important. So for example, if you wanted to have a lot of movement in the game, a lot of free movement, it's not a track, that's fine. It's just worth bearing in mind how the camera is going to interact with that. Okay, so I've got NPC spawning, got NPC running and jumping. So let's do the distance side of it next. There's a few scripts. So I want to have a little run and I want to see how far I can get from here, from the start point. So on my driver script, I guess, no, that's going to be in there, spawn NPC. I want a function for basically setting a schedule off to capture the distance, which will be probably every frame. Or maybe every second. Just how much further did you get? If only you knew how many hours I've sunk into isometric design and testing. I can imagine. I got quite into at university. I was doing my games programming degree. I was quite into isometric design as well. I spent a lot of time um, sort of working in various engines and coding graphical things to kind of work on an isometric view. And there's just something really charming about a true isometric perspective in a game. With an orthographic camera where everything is nothing has any depth. Yeah, it's a really interesting design concept for games. It's a true isometric camera with a sort of an orthographic rather than a projection camera, having that kind of true angle. So yeah, it's a really cool. Anyone who's into game design and stuff, it's an area of kind of perspective for a game that's really worth exploring as a cool thing. You can't do true isometric in creative because you can't pick the sort of projection mode of the camera. That's getting very technical there, but yeah, I think it is a really cool area to explore. So what am I trying to do here? So let's say start distance. Pass the NPC back. So okay, so let's have a distance check. Again, it's going to be another schedule. So while this is true, so for as long as we're basically saying check the distance, we want to keep doing it. I'm going to set the property for check. The distance check interval. So how often do we want to check? Because then I can basically tweak that number easily in the properties. Let's say we do it every half a second for now. So we'll wait half a second. And then what we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to need to measure from the start point how far they are. So the distance is going to be simple vector.distance. So vector.distance basically handles a lot of the maths for you. To work out a vector distance, normally you would take one vector, so 3D position in space, x, y, z, minus that from another vector, x, y, z. That gives you basically the line between the two. Then you'd work out the length of that, which is some vector maths around kind of the squaring each number and then the square root of the whole thing added together. It's complicated vector maths, not too complicated if you are into kind of maths at a fairly, kind of advanced level. It's worth understanding a lot of how it works. You can do some really cool stuff with vector maths. I know I say that all the time, but really is an area of game design that's worth exploring. Nicely though, a lot of things like Creator and a lot of other engines provide functions for you. So in this case, you just say simple vector.distance, and you can see there it's asking for two different vectors, which will be my start points get position. So again, we're not asking for the entity, we're asking for the position of those entities. So start get position and my NPC get position. So where is my NPC? That should return me a distance value there, which will be in the units of Creator by default, which is centimeters. Obviously, if that says 100, it'll be 1 meter away. Okay, so we're going to need to pump that through to some sort of UI at some point, but let's just throw that in here for now, just to test the logic. And that's not going to work because I'm not getting that function to start. So I need to start and pass these things through. Put my driver, once I've spawned an NPC, let's start center scripts. start distance check, and I'm going to be sending my start point and my entity. Okay, I guess when am I going to stop this? That's going to be stopped when the NPC is killed. Stop distance check doesn't need any stuff. So this here, actually, I'm going to make that a property. And I think that's going to help with the UI side of things as well. So we'll say current distance, and that's also going to be something that's not editable. So it's not a property you can adjust to the side, but it's a property nonetheless up here. So my self.properties current distance is that. Okay, so I need to kill that schedule. So let's just check that exists. It should always exist if I'm calling stop, but just as a good safety check. Okay, I guess when I start, the first thing I should do is always set that back to 0. Okay, so I've got a start and a stop. So if we're calling start, we need to know when to say stop, and that will come here as well. Script on NPC killed. I guess, actually, rather than adding another function call in here, and because that's going to get called as well. So when the NPC is killed, we're just going to get a blanket. Anything on the user with this function gets called. Then we're going to catch that here and tell that to happen down here. So that should handle that. So let's see if that's worked. Distance is nil. Okay, something didn't work. Something here isn't working. Let's check what we're getting for those two things. Let's check if it's start or pause. Start or NPC come back nil. Let me know that's why. Okay, one's an entity and one is user data. Which should be okay. I think that's saying it's user data because it's an NPC. Okay, so let's think about this. Why is get position? Oh, that's not. I don't think that will have caused a problem. Let's. No. And there's an error there. Health script line 18. Attempt to index local owner. I think kill got called several times, so we could probably code around this here. So if self entity is alive, but only if we're alive actually could we do this. So just in case you get killed again and something else calls it, that should fix that. I want to know why that working. Get position should work on an NPC. It's just the position of the entity, so that should be fine. Start should be fine. Oh, distance is nil because that doesn't exist anymore. Am I just a red herring? Am I just being daft? Okay, there we go. So let's just clear that other print. It helps if you print the, if you're looking for a result in something, it helps if you actually print the thing you're looking for. Okay, so 2.15 meters or centimeters, I guess. Because I'm, yeah, obviously I'm not directly the kind of where I am isn't going to be exactly on top of it. But as I move, you should see that's gone up. So I'm now 183. So I'm 1.8 meters away. Okay, that broke again. Line 19. Attempt to index local owner. Just check we're still getting an owner. Okay, should be. That's interesting because that was working just fine. What did I change to break that? So that's coming back as nil is my problem. So if that doesn't break, yep, I can see that. Set owner is set to me. What am I doing on killed that might have caused that to be upset? So this is on my alien NPC. I'm thinking I'm just attaching the camera, right? So that shouldn't be it. Cam logic, detach camera. I haven't got it referenced in more than one place. That was working. I can't think what I've done since then to break that. What I could try and do is just try and explicitly reach it. Because the error I'm getting is attempt to index local owner. So that is nil. That's the problem. Okay, let's try again. Hey, Rosie. Attempt index field NPC driver script. And now I'm really confused. Oh no, the error was. I'm either doing something really daft, or I'm just not understanding what this problem is. Okay, so it got called twice for some reason. Server NPC health script, attempt index field NPC driver script. There's my NPC driver script in the same thing as that. That should work. I am a little bit lost with that. That definitely has that script, so why is that not working? Okay, so what have I changed? I guess we backtrack. What did I change? I've set this up. Fine. Oh, I changed a bit of the logic around when to spawn. That caused a problem. So when do I spawn an NPC? It's when this script in it says to spawn an NPC. Could you try to do the live check inside the scheduled function? It's been called twice. Yeah, maybe actually. That's not a bad shout. Because, yeah, I'm a little bit confused because syntactically, I don't think I've done anything wrong. Okay, so only do that again. Alive. Okay. But now it's not. Okay, so it's not erroring. Okay, so that's fixed it. Yeah, thanks, Lush Death. So I guess the error was a red herring because this function was getting called twice. It was getting called once and everything was fine. It was getting called again, but the entity it was invalid at that point. It had been destroyed. That's why that was happening. Why now, though, am I not respawning an NPC? See if this is getting called. Okay, so I'm never getting the on NPC killed. It's all part of the the fun of a game jam. I think I know what it is. I think it's because I've set up that second function, haven't I? I think it's because I've done this. It doesn't actually call it in both places, but I thought it did. So it must actually only call it in one of the places. That's me misunderstanding. So what I probably want to do is a second call after all. Probably something I could do with binding in on listeners and things, but I think just for the sake of getting past this now, I think that's the problem, right? Is I was relying on that calling it in more than one place, which I thought it did. Call event function up with the given args on all scripts that have it as a function. Maybe I've just misunderstood the way that works, but I thought that it would call it on both places, but I think it was only calling it in one place, which was stopping the distance, but then it wasn't respawning me. Yep. Okay, we've got to the bottom of that. Whew. Okay, so we're basically getting our output of our distance being tracked, so that's good. What do I want to do next? So probably a little bit of UI actually. I'm going to have a little go. Just a simple on-screen UI. It's really simple to do sort of stuff now. So if I add a new UI widget, call this distance tracker UI. Okay, so really straightforward now actually. If you want to position a piece of UI on the screen, you can use these new white boxes. Okay, so I can just simply click and drag. I want, let's just say, a bit of UI on this side over here. It tells you how far you've gone. Okay, so what do I want it to do? I want a little bit of space. Okay, so I want where it says sign title. I don't want that to come from here. I want that to come from a property. Okay, so let's set up properties tag, which should be there by default. It feels like that's a bug that's not there to start with. Okay, but I'm going to set up a new property, just like you would in a script, very similar. It'll have a name of distance and a type of, I'll just be a string for now. Okay, and then you render that out like a normal tag, and then you'll see you get your properties appear down here. So you can actually do this stuff really quite straightforward now, which is great. I guess we'll do, actually, the distance will be a number. We'll do the whole thing as a text that I can format. I think that's probably smart. Okay, so the distance will actually read something like distance will be 0 or -1, -1 meters. Okay, so to bind that in down here, instead of doing a data bind value, sorry, we're going to do data bind value, but instead of it coming from data, this model down here, if we say properties dot and then distance, okay, so that's going to access this now instead of this model, and we can see that I've got my distance 1 meter there. So let's just make that small as from that. Right, so now updating this should be a lot more straightforward. We can access this actually from the server in our script. So while we've got this function here and we've got our current distance, let's set up a new property for here, which is we'll call it distance label. No, in fact, distance message. I type text, so my distance message will be basically the same as what I'm expecting down here. distance, but instead of writing -1, I'll say .m. Okay, so I'm going to format this now down here directly into this here. So let's say I think this should work. I haven't tested this. I think this is, if I've understood how this should work, I believe this is how it worked, and it's a really, really nice way to quickly update UI. I'm not having to create separate scripts and all that sort of stuff we've had to do in the past. So if I access my UI directly, so distance tracker UI dot properties dot distance equals, okay, so I'm directly going to say whatever this down here equals, and it's going to equal my properties from this script, which is my distance message format. Okay, so I'm going to format this with my current distance number. Okay, so if I just pass in current distance, okay, what that's going to do is that's going to basically replace the 1 for me with the current distance, if all that works as I expect it to. Which you can see it does to a very accurate number. Okay, cool. That's good. Good little bit of UI work there. So yeah, really straightforward to get kind of numbers being driven on screen. Looks like it's complicated what I did, but if you follow it slowly enough, you can kind of really easily drive data to the front of the UI now, which is something that used to take quite a lot of functions here and there and checking and stuff. Now it's just really, really straightforward, which is great. Right, what do I want to do next? I think, in fact, back in 1 second, I'm going to close my door. Close the door before all the bugs come through into the light. Okay, so what was next? Did have a little running list of things I wanted to try and do. Okay, so I could do some save stuff now around the save, or on this, format that distance as well. First thing I want to do is not display it in centimeters. I want to display it in meters. So let's close some of these down again. So the current distance is going to be that distance actually divided by 100. We're going to basically make that into a meter value as well. I could math.seal it as well, which will basically, or floor, basically stops it from kind of, it gets rid of the decimals. Yeah, that looks. We start off at 0. Okay, that looks better. So we've got kind of 5 meters. Okay, and that feels like it's updating fast enough, like every half a second. Okay, pretty cool. Right. So let's get that saving, or onto that script. So we want to have something around kind of players getting a high score, for example. I think what I'm basically going to be doing is just sort of showing off lots of little kind of bits of kind of game. I don't know if I'm going to get to around kind of actually finishing off this game, but hopefully kind of it's been introducing some interesting mechanics and sort of how you can display things like the UI and stuff. So if you want to now save this off, there's a really straightforward way to do that. We want a couple of functions up here, and these are built-in functions. Again, you have to have this on the user. The user is basically the place that you would save information on a script. But NPC user logic script, let's say on save on load. Okay, so firstly we're gonna do a save, which is going to give us the information we want to kind of record. So we want to save our current distance. We want to save our current distance if it's better than our high score. Okay, so we've got a high score there. So we can do some check below. So if we're calling on save, we're going to assume we want to save our current distance. So we set up a new table. So our table of data will contain a score value, and if we're saving, we're going to say that's going to be our current distance that goes into that. And then we can simply call on this function, on this script, we say save data, set save data with our data table. So that's simply, kind of really straightforward use case of how we save something to a script. We set up a little table containing the information we want, and then we call set save data. Now to get that back out on load, what we're going to call is in the past you would call that and it would return a table and you would parse the table as a callback. Actually, it all happens sort of instantly now. So if I say local data equals self get save data, then that's how I now get this information back out. So this data table that I'm getting here is equal to that one there. And what I can do is just put that straight into my high score. I guess I should keep that consistent before I confuse myself. So we'll do high, one word, equals data high score. So anything that's in my table will come back out. I guess what's always worth doing first is just checking that there is the data there. So that might have come back as nil if I'd never saved anything in the past. So it's the first time the game runs. And we could be able to call onload fine on init. So when this script initializes, we're going to come in and load that data. Then we can save when we're ready. So I'm going to stop a distance check. We can do a quick check here. So if self.properties current distance is greater than my self.properties high score, what we want to do is trigger a save. Okay, so trigger a save based on that, and that will call my two functions. So let's see how that works. Okay, so that's my distance 7. Any errors? No errors. Okay, I'm going to jump. I'm going to make it even further distance. 19. I guess I need a second thing to kill myself on. Actually, I don't think the NPCs are going to trigger a death plane thing, are they? Okay, probably need a trigger to catch any NPCs that fall off. Let's add a second death obstacle. Okay, so 11 is my new record. Okay, so what we should see now, when I come to my user NPC logic script, I can view any saved data that's scored against this script. So if you want to know exactly what was saved, instead of having to rely on printing it out, you can now actually see kind of a current saved data. So I can see that I've got a table with my high score and it's put 11 in there. So I know straight away that it's worked. I think you can actually change this here as well. So if I wanted to just test, I can't change it. Okay, just for view only. I thought you could change it. But yeah, so that's a really good way of being able to kind of monitor what's in a script. It allows you to sort of quite easily see. I can clear that, so I can click that button. That's going to get rid of that now. But actually, next time when I play, it kind of gives me kind of a reset experience. So my score that time was 7. I can go and check to see if that has saved my 7, which it might not have. Oh, it has. Okay, cool. So that's working out quite nicely. Okay, we've got a few minutes left of the stream. If anyone's got any questions, now is the time to get them in. So I'm not going to be going for a huge amount longer tonight. But hopefully, there's a few little mechanics and a few little things here that just kind of help people add a little bit of polish. I think getting those UIs in really quickly, getting those little kind of interesting save data mechanics, especially for that kind of retention of a comeback later type thing, is really important. There's a few other packages that you can probably point you to that'd be good. So we've got things like a basic basic XP system that I've made. I know Sean's made a really good one. The NUI awards and achievements and things like that are always really good to include. I think I added a daily rewards thing a while ago, daily login tracking system. Okay, so have a little go with that if you fancy. I think that there should be a full guide up on the forum, but it's a system basically for allowing you to track each day that a user logs into your game and gives them some sort of reward based on it. And that reward would be obviously purely within your game. It might be some currency or some items or something. But yeah, I think it's a really cool way, perhaps, of adding some sort of comeback later type mechanics. So yeah, I think I had hoped to get a little bit further with the kind of main bulk of this, but as I say, we're coming to the end, and I don't want to dive too much into a rabbit hole of building it out. But it's an interesting little way, interesting way to interact with the game, perhaps. Anything else on my list that I could quickly get through? I guess we could do some quick leaderboard stuff. So if anyone hasn't worked with leaderboards before, I'll show you how to quickly do that. So leaderboards quite straightforward, and again, they're a really good way of getting people to come back into your game, as well as challenges and activities. Yeah, do make sure you make the most of all that sort of stuff as well. But leaderboards are really quite straightforward. So we can set up a new ID. So the ID for the leaderboard, in this case, would be sort of call it the distance leaderboard. Furthest traveled. Okay, high is better, so it's a distance-based thing. It's not in seconds, and that should work out quite nicely. So this is the important bit, this distance. Okay, and what we can do here is we don't have to necessarily determine on the leaderboard if they're worth updating. Each time you get a new kind of a new score, you can basically throw that to a leaderboard and say, this is the score. You can basically decide on the leaderboard if it's going to be higher or not. So just throw the numbers at the leaderboard and the system will determine whether or not to actually update the value. So here we can basically, each time we finish, we can easily on the user update, set leaderboard value, I think it is. Set leaderboard value. Okay, so that needs a leaderboard ID string and the number that we want to set against that, which is going to be our current distance. So even if that is a lot less than your actual record, don't worry, you can set that as the leaderboard value and it will only update it based on this ordering. So if the value is lower, so in this case, if the value is lower than what's on the leaderboard, it's just going to ignore it. Okay, what was the next thing? So we want to read that leaderboard out. So you could create your own UI quite easy. You can do a get leaderboard values for a specific leaderboard and you can kind of build up a UI. That's completely up to you. One way that is really easy and straightforward to do it is to just search for the leaderboard 3D package that's in game. Okay, and what you can do with that is you can quite easily go to your templates, drag in a new leaderboard. Okay, and then if you click the little locator, you'll see that there's a leaderboard name, it calls it. It's actually the ID that it's looking for. I've got that distance. Check that's right. Put that in a better place so you can actually see it. Okay, so I hit 12 there. Not got any errors. So we should see that 12 appear on that leaderboard in a moment. Oh, by the way, earlier I think you had multiple definitions of NPC killed in the same script. I believe you can have them defined in separate scripts, but not defined in the same class. So either you could have had one function that delegated out to other two functions, or both functions. Yeah, so I think it wasn't working the way I'd expected. And I think that was probably because they were basically on different script folders. So rather than, or maybe in the same script folder, I think that was the problem. But yeah, I think basically the problem was they were tripping each other up. I assumed it would call either one, but I always get tripped up around that area anyway. But yeah, so we should see that hopefully in a moment, if that's not broken. Maybe in another sort of 10 seconds or so, we should see my score update. I think this by default, the leaderboards will update every 60 seconds with the values that you put in. So this is a game, I mean, hopefully by the end of the week I can get a little bit more time on it. But as I say, hopefully everyone's having a pretty interesting kind of game design kind of thoughts around this game jam. As I say, it was certainly one that we wanted to sort of test people's mechanical thoughts as opposed to their sort of kind of constant creative thoughts, because we know you're all an amazing creative community. So it was really kind of a chance to see, given a sort of mechanical design theme, how you would react to that. Come on, update. Give it a moment. Any more questions from anybody in chat before we wrap this stream up? Hey, there we go. Cool. So we can see that that distance that I got before, that 12 was taken as the leading value. So some interesting little mechanics, some interesting little bits made there. Not as much progress as I'd hoped, but as I say, it's a sort of bit of a more of a game than I thought I was gonna. You know, I thought I'd get through a bit more, but I think I bit off a bit more than I could chew. But there's a lot of the underlying groundwork's there, so I could wrap this up with something. As I say, if you are struggling with the game jam in terms of scope, then do make sure you sort of strip back, you know, until you get something that is perfectly achievable. But I think I'm going to leave that there for this evening anyway. As always, obviously, we are available over on Discord if you do have any questions. So yeah, hopefully everybody's having a pretty good game jam. I hope everybody's not stressing out too much. It's a pretty, as I say, it's a pretty cool chance to really flex that idea about game designs over creativity. But yeah, hopefully you're having a good point. Do you think you'll do an update in the future to the NPC package you made? Yes, I've got a long list of things I'd like to do with the NPC package. It's just finding the time in the day in which to do them. But maybe that could be a stream at some point. If I make it a stream, I kind of have no excuse, and it's, you know, something I'll do live. So yeah, do let me know over on Discord what you'd like to see in that NPC package. I've got some fixes to make, and I know Serial's given me a long list of really awesome suggestions of stuff I'd like to do. And I know I keep saying I'll do it. I really would like to keep, you know, kind of promising that I'll do it. It's just, yeah, finding the time to. But yeah, I would hopefully really not too long in the future be able to make an update to that NPC package. So yeah, if you are taking part in the jam and you haven't already, I know we've seen a lot of people coming over to Discord already from Itch, and that's really cool. So if you do find yourself watching the stream in the archive and you haven't already, make sure you join Discord. It's discord.gg/Crater. And that's the best place to keep in touch and ask any questions and get on kind of on board with the community in terms of anything they're doing in the game jam. What I would say, and what I always really make sure I push, and now more than ever, especially with this being a mechanical driven theme rather than a creative theme, is playtest. Make sure you lean on each other in the community. Get your games out, even if it's just sharing a code to someone's editor, so you don't have to publish your game, but you can share a code to the editor. Jump in, playtest, get feedback, get an idea. You know, what you think might be simple really might not be that simple in the end, so do make sure you get as much feedback as possible. We're going to try and run Feedback Friday this week. I'll be I might be around. There's a few of us that kind of are away. We're a little bit short staffed this week, so if it doesn't run with a staff member, hopefully we can get a community member to run it. If not, if it's not an official Feedback Friday session, I would recommend trying to get as many people together as you can to test your game anyway. AJ's off this week, as you probably have noticed from Discord, so he won't be streaming tomorrow. So there won't be a stream again this week. But do make sure you tune into Andy's workshop if you are interested. I think, I can't remember what the workshop was. Let me just quickly check. It's a really interesting sounding workshop, actually. So if you join Discord, join the workshop channel. I think it was announced earlier today. No, where did it go? Let's see, workshops. Okay, this week's workshop is on first-person game design. That's right. So it's a first-person game design workshop, which is a really cool one, actually, with the new first-person update that we've had, the updated features. So yeah, if you are interested in making a first-person game at some point post-jam, do make sure you tune into the workshop on Thursday. It might be a nice break from the jam, but also do make sure you sign up so Andy knows that you're going to partake. So any people who sign up can participate. So head over to Discord, sign up, and we'll see you on Thursday. So yeah, have a great jam, everybody. Have a great rest of the week. And we will see you over on Discord throughout the week. And yeah, we'll see you next week on Tuesday.